As House Corrections and Institutions Committee, again, this is Thursday, April 3rd. We're continuing looking at some of the bills that have been introduced to our committee. We have with us Representative Dan Noyes, who has introduced H 380. And welcome, and we're just going over a brief overview to see if it's a bill we want to work on or not. So if you could identify yourself for the record. And welcome and give us a brief overview.
Great. Thank you. For the record, Dan Noyes, Representative Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere. So I introduced 380 after meeting with our state's attorney, and also we had a number of community events talking about issues in the community around crime, and mostly it seemed to focus around individuals who were constantly showing up in the court report, in the courts, same person, multiple times. And so the thought was two things which are in this bill. One is our state's attorney was talking about maybe having some more tools, and allowing an individual to be charged with a felony if they keep not showing up, violation of conditions of release. And I think a lot of it came from, you had one individual who was constantly stealing cars and going to wherever, to whether or not buy drugs or whatever, and then, destroying the cars and leaving the people without access to transportation. And so that was the original thing, was, okay, there could be an additional charge of a felony if you continually keep reoffending, not showing up, violating your conditions of release. But as I know, being in human services, there's often more to it. And I was really trying to also think more about, which is probably more in this committee's jurisdiction, around pretrial services. And is there a way that, and I think we've had this in the budget over the years, to have somebody who could call the individual up and say, don't forget, tomorrow's your court date. Do you have a ride? Are you going to be there? And be a lot more proactive on getting that person engaged with the courts so that they're not, can come to some sort of a conclusion with their trial through sentencing or whatever. I'm definitely not a lawyer. I don't have a lot of expertise in this, but these are just things that I've learned, from meeting with people in my community. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to put a bill in, and, let's see if we can try to help these individuals, whether they need to get into treatment or just need to come to some sort of a conclusion with whatever crime they've committed. I was in here a little bit earlier because I actually thought this was going to judiciary, and they're like, no, we don't know you. We don't have you today. So I was down here earlier. And I was just remembering, I was at the self-checkout line in Hannaford's, and this individual who was in front of me checked their stuff out, put it back in their cart.
Walked out. Yeah.
Right? But the manager walked over, reached in their cart as they were walking out, and took out like a beef tenderloin that they didn't run through the machine, was watching them, and just let them go. I mean, they went out and she went the other way. She was like, whatever, they paid for the rest of the stuff. They just didn't pay for this. So, I think about, obviously had some history with this individual and had been watching them. So, obviously didn't think it was something that she wanted to, hold the person or call the police on or anything. Was just like, look, I'm just going to take this product back they didn't pay for, and put it back on the shelf and call it a day. So anyways, I just think that was my reason for introducing this bill, mostly thinking around, is there a way we could get people to make sure that they do show up, make sure that they're complying with the terms of their conditions of release pre-trial? Because we know we can't hold them. We can't hold an individual without bail, which I've talked to Representative Lalonde about a number of times, because that seems to be the revolving theme in my community is, well, just hold them.
Well,
don't release them on bail. I'm like, well, you can't really do that. Correct. So I'm constantly explaining that.
They're not at risk of flight.
Correct. They haven't been found guilty. So that kind of my reasoning for this is also, more around that pre-trial, making sure individuals show up. So happy to answer any questions. You guys know more.
So when you're talking about conditions of release, it's those conditions that the court imposes.
Mhm.
And then if there's violations of that. Try.
Yeah, have you contemplated at all, this is a blanket, any condition of release, right? And for me, failure to appear and stealing a car are very two different
Mhm.
conditions of releases.
Yeah.
Have you contemplated, are all of them are felonies?
I actually looked at the form that they give the individual for conditions of release, and there is one at the bottom that says other.
Yeah.
So you could write a judge could write anything in there. I thought, like if I see your face again,
Yeah.
that would be a condition. I don't know.
And this.
But you're right. I mean,
What's that?
this came here.
In here, well, it's a
Oh, yeah,
pretrial.
I love the other stuff, yeah. Adding staff to DOC, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretrial supervision.
Yeah, that,
Correct.
yeah, the pretrial, let's beef that
Yeah.
up, but
And
the other piece isn't gonna stay here, it's gonna go to judiciary.
And we have to work with judiciary.
And you're right, like what constitutes a felony, and you do raise a good point. Like, is it just someone who's, has condition of release, no alcohol, and you see them at the bar drinking a beer, should they be charged with an additional felony, and what impact will that have on, their trial and their getting the help maybe that they need in many cases. So I just put together kind of short, throw it out there for discussion.
Questions? Thoughts?
I love the pretrial stuff, I mean,
Well, we did a lot of work in here last year on setting up pretrial supervision with DOC.
Mhm.
And if people are interested in looking at this, what I would recommend, we get Ben Novogrodsky in to walk us through
Mhm.
the law that we put in place last year for pretrial supervision. I think he did that at the beginning of the session when everybody was new. So it'd be good for a refresher course, because we do have a structure there for pretrial supervision. It's not fully funded. To fully fund it was probably about 1.3, 1.4 million. There was over 600,000 that was put in the budget for FY '25. There were 2 counties where this has been rolled out. It is Caledonia and New Orleans, I think. Orleans and Essex. I thought it was Caledonia.
One of them.
To see how it rolls out. So we'll get an update. I think it would be good for the committee to get an update on the pretrial supervision law that we put in place.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any money that was put in for it in FY '26. But in order to do it statewide, I think it's about 1.3.
Orleans and Essex.
It's Orleans and Essex. So, because DOC would have to hire a little bit of staff. to do it. But does that make sense to the committee?
Mhm.
We can schedule Ben in and Dan, if you want to be in the committee room and listen while that's going on, that would be great.
Sounds good.
That would give you at least something to go back with to your communities about what is in place right now.
Great. And also, definitely thinking about how to give people the opportunity to get into treatment if that's what's needed, coming from my committee right above here in Human Services, to maybe even blend some of that into the pretrial services is like, okay, making sure those connections are made, because often, takes multiple times for someone to be led to a potential solution to their addiction issues before they'll engage. So, I would hope that would also be brought in.
Mhm.
Questions? Anything? Comments?
Thank you. I do just like, I worry about adding new positions
to DOC when we're in the staffing crisis, you know, because you have 14 new positions. If you're a CO who's in a facility staffing, you might be eligible for one of those. Then that creates a further hole in the facility. So that's a bit of the cost.
Yeah.
Because I really like the concept too, Dan. I think they're sort of needed positions. We haven't had too much luck in appropriations downstairs when we've requested new positions, but I think it's definitely worth talking about anyways.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, and that might be offset by the lack of ripple effect on the no-shows. You have 50%, just throwing a number,
Mhm.
of people who are supposed to show up to court, don't show up to court. The cost of that to reschedule and have all the lost time is huge,
Mhm.
possibly compared to one person who's making, or, you know, to the pretrial support.
Yeah, I hear you,
Understand
Kevin.
what the
Yeah.
impact of the no-shows is. I haven't seen those kinds of numbers. Have anybody here,
No,
what percent
because
of people don't show up
A lot,
for court?
a lot.
Well, that's very expensive.
That's
We
costly.
authorized UPSs in 2 courthouses because of the ripple effect.
Mm.
This is a similar kind of situation in my mind.
Yeah.
Anything else for Dan? Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
No, when Ben comes in and walks us through what's currently law for pretrial supervision, we'll let you know.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Just drop down.
Yeah, right?
Have a great day.
Anything else?
We're being awfully efficient this
I know, well, we're just.
Yes, to
A
everything.
long afternoon.
What?
We're also saying yes to
We're gonna
everything.
pass 20 bills this month.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a lot of work, let me tell you. So we'll schedule some things for next week, and it is only 10:15. I don't know what other work to do as a committee. Can people think of anything?
We get some stuff this afternoon, right? We do, or is that still
Yeah, we
going?
got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right in, what do we have this afternoon?
191.
Got corrections all afternoon,
Yeah,
probably 20 minutes,
yeah, very, very quick.
Yeah.
half an hour, depending how many announcements. We got a very light week. It'll pick up at the end of next week.
Yeah, there's one Senate bill that came over, right? Calendar,
Simple.
came out unanimously.
So let's go